Hey Mim.
Hey Scarlett.
Welcome back, guys. You're listening to Style Over Substance.
We're just two friends talking about our experiences working inside the fashion industry and also our observations from outside the fashion industry. It's sometimes serious, but it's definitely always a good laugh.
Always. We release new episodes every Tuesday.
So subscribe on your favourite podcast listening platforms. Yeah, I'm right. I'm having some coffee.
Actually, this is decaf. I've already had my first coffee of the day.
Oh, no. Decafs are for...
No, I can't. Too much caffeine makes me feel sick.
That's okay. That's fair enough because I can have 2 a day.
Yeah.
And any more than that, if I have my third, I've really pushed it.
Yeah.
And then I start to feel not twitchy, but queasy.
Yeah, it makes me feel nauseous.
Dodgy. Yeah. So, okay, I take it back. But
I just like having coffee. I've really expanded it. I feel like I could just have coffee constantly all day. I've got to this point now.
I realised that I was drinking coffee during school.
Yeah,
I'm a climate.
Black coffee didn't you used to have?
Huh?
Did you used to have black coffee at school?
Yes, but not even before sixth form where we had the kitchen and we made our own.
Yeah. Oh, you mean before then?
Yeah, like during secondary school, my mum always used to make me. I used to eat breakfast in the car on the way to the bus, and I used to eat like toast in the car, or whatever, or a bagel or whatever. And my mum used to make me coffee in my like flask. It was never. I drank coffee every day.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, tea's got caffeine in.
It does,
but
yeah, no, I've been on this daily for a very long time.
But you're not a tea drinker, are you?
No, I do like tea.
Do you?
I do. No, yeah, I do like tea, but I drink it when I'm cold. Like if I need to feel warmer or cozier, or I drink tea when I'm sick because it's good for your stomach. You know how it like settles your stomach a bit sometimes. Yeah. If you've got like a stomach upset or like you're really
kind of
gassy
tea?
Or something,
You're talking mint tea here, or
it doesn't even matter. Really, it can be black tea. It's just I don't know what it is. It kind of settles your stomach a bit. I think it's the fact that it's a hot drink.
You learn something on this podcast every week.
Yeah. Everything except fashion.
Yeah. Never learning anything new about fashion. What's your fashion story?
Mine is a collaboration between Church's shoes, they're a very fancy shoemaker, and Off-White. I mean, this came across my eyeballs on Instagram, and I wasn't shocked because I think in recent years we've been saturated with collaborations.
Yeah. And
the fact that Off-White is like what I would call like inherently a collaborative brand. Their popularity and their fame as a brand is built on collaborations with like Nike and like other brands that are big as well. But what I do like is that Church's they're actually owned by Prada, but they are not a fashion brand. They are quite a serious shoe brand. And quite respected. Like if you're a guy or a gal who likes smart shoes and you like the idea of kind of spending quite a bit of money on your shoes, then Church's is one of those brands that is kind of highly regarded. So it's that highbrow, lowbrow collaboration, which is quite cool. I mean, I suppose that's what a collaboration is in a sense. It's either targeting different groups of people because it is like, you know, highbrow and lowbrow, or it's like Gucci collaborating with North Face because North Face is such an outdoors athletic brand in that sense, and Gucci's just not not technical at all. So yeah, I thought it was interesting. But if you go on Church's Instagram, you will see they've got like really classic black brogues with quote unquote special event down the side, because obviously you kind of wear those for special occasions. It's got the classic off-white tag, you know, that kind of zip line tag, whatever that tag. That off-white is known for. I was going to say off-white is known for, but it's a leather one instead of a plastic one, so it's kind of like an upgraded, more expensive version, which is quite interesting and innovative. It's the laces as well. The shoelaces have quote unquote shoelaces written on them.
Okay. Didn't Off-White do something like that? Wasn't there like a jumper where it sort of told you, or a shirt or something where it told you like the instructions of how it was made or something like that?
Yeah, they do that.
The pieces.
It's very much pointing out the obvious, pointing out how to use or how to wear.
Yeah.
And, like they made boots in collaboration with Jimmy Choo. I remember one year, and it was like for walking in quotes, like these boots are made for walking. So I think that's a thing they do quite often. But what's your thoughts on these never-ending collaborations?
So I would say this is the kind of collaboration, a bit like the Gucci North Face, where I feel like it really makes sense. I feel like you're like, a beautiful shoemaker, a really cool brand, kind of wouldn't necessarily ever cross paths. So it's a really interesting one. I think when maybe it feels really obvious, or sort of things are too closely linked, sort of like, and also I feel like the Fendi Skims thing is kind of like, it doesn't really make sense in my opinion. Especially because actually it's got the F monogram on it, so it's like it's sort of devaluing Fendi stuff somewhat. But also, I don't know, that didn't really work for me as much as, because also Fendi could just do their own version of that.
It wasn't anything original, was it?
I think for a good collaboration, each party has to get something out of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like Skims was the only one getting something out of that Fendi.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, whereas like Off-White here will be learning so much about footwear from Church's, and then Church's will be maybe learning a more modern or like fun twist, and it will inspire them even after this collaboration. I would like to see like less of them, but more high quality ones.
Yeah.
But I do think the future of collaborations is just going to be soaring and soaring. I just think that's unfortunately like the way it's going to be.
I think you're right. You touched on the point of, as a brand, Off-White will learn about more classic footwear making. Churches will learn about a new way of being and doing, I suppose. But then I think also their customer base, like for example, Off-White's customer base that I see, quite young guys with a lot of extra money, and being in the know of what's in hype, you know, is really important to them. They will probably have an education in what makes a good shoe. Like they'll go into Churches and they'll learn about the leathers, and they'll learn about the sole and the different types and the different names of classic footwear. And it's an education for their client base, isn't it?
That's so true. It introduces them to some, and vice versa. Like, I don't know necessarily the guy who walks into Churches for a beautiful pair of leather brogues is necessarily also going to shop in Off-White. And I think that's I guess what the idea originally is, isn't it? It's to introduce your customer base, vice versa. And I think you would then hopefully sort of, you reach more households or something. I think it's a really cool one, to be honest.
I do. I think it's a good one.
And actually, Churches is quite expensive as well, so the price ranges aren't super dissimilar.
Yeah, probably not. But then Churches is, I feel like Churches shoes are the price of Off-White collaboration shoes. I still feel like it would be more expensive than like the normal Off-White thing. It's probably just better for them, more profit margin, and for both brands. Yeah. Well, what is your fashion story?
The Chanel show. So the Chanel show that was, I think it was last week, was entirely dedicated or inspired by tweed. Mm-hmm. And I think it was, I don't know if you've seen any pictures of the show.
Yeah.
But I thought it was that's such a heritage thing to Chanel. And it's always in the collection, but to sort of have that be a focal point, it's quite an old-fashioned thing. Chanel's definitely given it a cool lease of life. Mm-hmm. It's very... If I think of tweed in a non-Chanel sense, mm-hmm. I think of sort of quite an older lady who is old money, mm-hmm. maybe has like sort of a house quite similar to a stately home, or a very nice house to run.
Yeah.
Was sort of, I don't know if you've ever watched Gilmore Girls, but the grandma in Gilmore Girls is like the kind of person I think of, someone with a really nice house, so lots of like nice gold jewelry, mm-hmm. And they sort of throw it on, but it's also not even their best outfit. That's their laid back
every day,
with their slacks sort of outfit. So Chanel's really given it something. So I thought it was really cool, and actually it was quite a different show for Chanel. There was a lot of glam, but even the glam they pared down with either like rubber sort of Chanel welly boots mm-hmm. and stuff like that. But yeah, I wonder if this sort of tweed as well is like a celebration of the fact that we aren't dressing up as much, you know?
I think your point is interesting, because you very much point out the fact that tweed is not a dressed up fabric. And that is quite foreign to a lot of people. Because for me, there is no tweed without thinking about Chanel.
Yeah.
Really. If I imagine that older woman who likes tweed and dresses in that kind of old money way, I'm assuming that it's Chanel.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, there are like imitation Chanel jackets that lots of people wear, but still it's imitating Chanel. Like that's how I think of tweed. And because it is normally really expensive, because it is such a, I don't know, it's a unique fabric and there's skill involved in making it, but also its association with wealthier people. That's just kind of why it's so expensive. It's easy to think that it's a dressed up thing, and it's not really. It's like a day suit.
Yeah.
You don't go to a gala, or you don't necessarily go to, I don't know, someone's wedding in a tweed suit. Or we might, because, you know, we're simple people and we don't know the rules of upper society. But yeah, you're right. It is a everyday, I'm going to throw on a jacket, and it's my tweed one. In general, I really like Virginie's Chanel. I do. It's not as flamboyant as Carl. It doesn't come with the themes and the drama and the circus of it. But I think her stuff's wearable.
Really wearable.
I would buy her stuff. And the colour palette of the show was really cute. It is definitely stuff that people want to buy into. Heart-shaped quilted bags. Who doesn't want that? And like, some people might think it's boring, but I think it's still really nice pieces.
Yeah, definitely. And I actually think, like, okay, there were probably people who bought into sort of the shopping basket or whatever of that, but Chanel are increasing their prices, right? And so these bags are already now unattainable for a lot of us. So there's still that element of aspirational fashion. And actually, I think it's almost nice when you're like, oh my God, which one would I choose? And you're looking at them and you're like, I could wear so many of these. I think that's really nice to be able to look at a show and think that, rather than be thinking, well, it's just a fashion show look, isn't it? I personally relate to, I do love seeing beautiful things, but I go to couture for that, where it's like, that's bonkers, or they're showing off there. But just for ready to wear, I just want to see stuff that I actually could like one day think in a fantasy world I'd wear.
And even her couture show, because I kind of feel like Chanel couture is a bit different to the regular couture, because it's like a celebration of their craftsmanship more than it is about, you know, how outrageous and how big and different can their stuff be. But even her couture stuff are quite pared down, as you said. Like, yeah, I like it. And everyone who says they don't, like, they're not turning down anything that's given to them from that show.
Yeah,
like that. Yeah,
no, that's so true, actually. Yeah. It makes me really want to rewatch a Chanel documentary that I saw years ago, where it sort of shows the behind the scenes of making a collection, and there's a real focus on the tweed, and tweed is a really time consuming fabric to make, and then even all the binding that they finish it all off with is then made elsewhere. It's sort of like braided at this sort of old like family run place, and they're sort of having to like rush to pick it up, and it makes me want to just really appreciate the art of it all. Love Chanel. Sure.
I mean, now with these price increases, it's like, do you buy a bag or do you buy a Chanel jacket? Really?
Yeah.
Like £6,000-7,000 bags, you could be going and buying like Chanel ready to wear.
My suit fantasy is probably more realistic than my bag fantasy.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, I think Chanel ready to wear is one of those brands that you aspire to buy the ready to wear, because most of the time you're just like, don't waste your money on ready to wear. It's not worth it. It's going to look cute and pretty, but it's at the end of the day, it's clothes. You're going to put on weight. Your body's going to change. The fabric's going to get tired, blah, 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 blah. And so it's not a great place to necessarily put your money. You're better off buying into bags because they don't wear out as much. But Chanel tweed, you know, it's not a bad investment.
I know. Maybe size up just in case.
Yeah.
I've been like I actually need to really ask you a question off the podcast about something.
Okay.
But I was talking to my sister-in-law yesterday about how, just like I think I mentioned before, my body shape has changed a bit. And it's sort of that thing of, do I throw out certain things? And it's all of that. They're just kind of figuring out, well, my body shape's a bit different. Stuff suits me a bit differently, or like it's a bit tight there now. So should I just make my peace with that bit's just a bit like wider and just get rid of that stuff, or hope that one day
one day is never going to come.
Like, but then actually, like, I actually think my bones have widened. But it's sort of that thing of, what do you buy for? So then now in my head, I'm like, wow, my body's changed, and it's not like I've had a child. It's just changed because that's what happens. So it's made me think a bit differently about what to spend more money on. And sort of that thing of, do I just size up for things so that they fit me for longer? And yeah, it's like such a minefield. But I'm also a big believer of enjoy the now. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, if you're spending that amount of money on something, you have to know that you could rip it the first day you wear it. You know, like, things get in the way, things happen. You might stain it, like you might whatever. But also it might then fit you for the next 20 years. You might not change. So yeah, I just kind of think you can't fret about it all too much.
I mean, this is off topic from your fashion story, but in the same vein of what you were saying, I think that's why it's even more important to buy fewer things. You run the risk of like less wastage, but stuff that is like, you know, quote unquote, going to be your workhorse item, stuff that you can wear a lot and then replace easily, kind of, if you do grow out of it or whatever. Yeah, I think that's probably why people get to a certain point and they're like, I'm just going to buy basics. Because,
that's so true.
Yeah. And I've actually always sized up on coats.
Yeah.
Like since I was young, my mum's always been like, buy a size up. Because you need to like wear a jumper under it, but also just scared of growing out of stuff or getting bigger or changing or whatever. And then you're like, oh God.
We interrupt this broadcast to say, go follow us on Instagram. Our handle is @StyleOverSubstance pod. There you'll find our weekly fashion topics, all the stuff that we discuss in each episode, and our polls.
Or reach out to us at StyleOverSubstancePodcast@gmail.com for new suggestions of topic discussions, or even to share your own fashion stories. We also have a YouTube channel, Style Over Substance Podcast, if you'd rather listen to our episodes over there.
Back to the episode.
So this week we are talking about brands expanding from just their main line into diffusion lines, homeware lines, makeup, beauty. And does that diminish a brand? Does that add to the appeal? Is it that lifestyle factor? Why do people do it? And
I think it's an interesting topic. We have in the past a number of times, if you've been listening to this podcast for long enough, but we've spoken about brands, particularly fashion brands, of course, like moving into beauty is a no-brainer. It makes the most money for a lot of these companies.
Yeah.
Not just because it's a lower price point. And so therefore a lot of people can afford to buy into it, but it's something you have to replenish it once, it finishes, doesn't it? You can have a black bag for 100 years, but you can only have your lip gloss for like a few months or a year, depending on how often you use it, but it will deplete. And so it's a cash cow for brands because it's cheap to make, cheap to sell. And it's just like your customer's going to keep coming back to you. And so for a lot of brands, beauty is just like, if you want to expand and become a bigger brand and a household name, you've got to start with beauty.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, even you saying that then has made me feel like, oh, we're all just like part of this.
We are pawns in there.
Yeah, and even with perfume, perfume is so expensive. And actually, I've never really understood why perfume is expensive. It's such an easy, cheap thing to make.
It's got to formulate it once and then.
And then just keep producing it. And of course, some of the essential oils or whatever, or the fragrances are expensive, but the price of perfume is just going up and up and up.
Because we keep buying it. We keep buying it.
I know. Yeah, that's so true. But also, I think perfume is probably quite similar to the luxury fashion industry of like illusion of luxury too. So obviously, like you could get a fragrance from sort of the high street from Zara, from and other stories, and they smell fine and they last on you like a little bit. And of course, if you buy a nicer one, it lasts on you maybe all day. But a smell is also still a smell, and you can spray it a bit more. And there's all of that, but it's like you get bought into the thing of, but it must be a really nice perfume because it's £150. But that depletes with every spray. And then you're part of this thing of wanting to replenish. It's a crazy game.
But
I think beauty is it's also something now where so many formulas have been created that you're not really ever doing anything new. So it's probably quite safe, that already so many lipstick formulas exist. You kind of just have to pick one, I'm assuming. And all of that stuff, you just kind of need your basics, or you just need to really go in with like a really great fragrance and maybe just some lip products. You can kind of really pick and choose when it comes to beauty on what you do.
Beauty is, because as you say, it's easy to kind of come up with a beauty collection from a brand's perspective. From a customer's perspective, it's like, I like Valentino, so I'm gonna buy their new lipsticks where I can like interchange, like pop out the lipstick and put a new one in, but it has that gold V on the outside and it looks cute, and I can pull it out of my Valentino bag, you know, when I'm at dinner, and it's all part of that like look. Experience. You're part of the sphere of Valentino. And like, what is it? I think it was 2020 when Hermes came out with their lipsticks. And I am shocked to see, not that people bought it. Again, this is just me being a poor person, not understanding the world of wealth. But I was like, okay, cute. I can imagine people buying it off the bat because they want to see what Hermes is saying in terms of lipsticks. They want to know, you know, you want to buy into something just to see how it is. But there are people who are genuinely buying Hermes lipsticks time and time again, like it's a lipstick from NYX. And it's crazy to see how much money people will pour or spend on something so fleeting. And it's like, why would a brand not go into that? And I mean, of course, your product has to be kind of decent. Like Chanel coming out with the advent calendar, that was terrible. That probably did nothing for them. But if you have a half decent makeup range, then it's just like your diehard fans are just gonna, of course they're gonna buy into it. Why not?
Yeah, and you often see with these luxury brands as well, like Christian Louboutin has like nail lacquers and I think lipstick or lip lacquers. And it's this whole experience, like the bottles, they're really distinctive. I bet half of actually the cost of it is behind the packaging for a lot of these things.
Definitely.
Carolina Herrera has, they're interchangeable. But then it's like a beautiful, you can just a really beautiful kind of container or whatever it's called. But then it also has like a lipstick charm. So you could almost have your lipstick as your bag charm.
I really like them. I've considered getting one.
They're it's so clever, and it's a way of elevating these things. And you see it and you're like, oh my God, my lipstick could, and it's a talking point. There's all these things like, why do we like buy into it? It's either for ourselves, it's for an experience, it's a talking point. Imagine that your lipstick can be all of those things. Of you feel really special using it. Someone's like, oh my God, where's that from? And all of this stuff is really clever of these brands. Like even like Tom Ford lipsticks, there is a word, the lipstick bullet. It's magnetic past a certain point. It's square. It sort of feels really luxury to use. I actually don't know if I have one. I've always wanted one.
Well, Tom Ford is one of those that beauty like eclipses. Main, like everyone knows Tom Ford suits, kind of that like red carpet look. Great, everyone loves it. But there's so many diehard fans of their perfume, which are very expensive, like £280 a bottle and things like that. And Tom Ford makeup and skincare, and it definitely eclipses their actual clothes.
Yes, so true. It's so true. But I do think it is that experience. I think you're really right when you said like someone pulling a Valentino lipstick out of their Valentino bag. That's who I envisage is buying those Hermes lipsticks. You want to pull an Hermes lipstick out of your Kelly. You want to like. But also, I'm never going to own a Birkin or a Kelly. And so maybe the only thing I can ever own from Hermes is a lipstick. Actually, like, I'm a beauty junkie. I love makeup, but I don't think I'd ever look to Hermes for that.
I wouldn't, but
I'm also because I do love makeup, I'd rather sort of support makeup people who actually know what they're doing. or like are dedicated sort of makeup.
That's the thing. It's not for you. It's for their fans.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, even in the sense that other departments, other brands move into, one typically is homeware. Hermes has homeware. I mean, Hermes is known for their bags, of course. In recent years, all we've been talking about is Birkin and Kelly's, and if you deserve one.
if you're a chosen one.
Yeah. But they don't sell their bags really on their website, but if you go on their website, it's less about their bags and more about their riding accessories, more about their home accessories, more about their scarves. Home is a massive part, like place settings, like tableware, and their riding accessories. That is, sometimes we can think, oh, you know, fashion brands, they have started with fashion and they've moved into other areas. And sometimes fashion is their diffusion. Sometimes fashion is the department that they moved into and not started from necessarily.
That's so true. And actually, I even think what's clever about when these brands expand is, think of when you like want to buy a look. So say it's the Hermes show, because we're talking about Hermes, and you can buy the look. So it's like, oh, you like the model's sort of dress, coat, shoes, let me show you where you can buy them. Oh, you like her makeup? These are our products we used.
Yeah.
Oh, you like in the background that you can see on all of the chairs, we've got this throw with an H on. You can buy that for your home. And home is you can style homeware so many different ways. I'm a sucker for it. If I'm on a website and you see how someone's styled their home, or they show you different ways that you can style a cushion with different colors or whatever, you get sucked into like, I want all of that. And so a home thing, you can really sell the dream on I think a different scale than you can fashion or beauty. I think it's there are people who love their tablescapes. And that is like, imagine, like, we don't move in these circles, and you know what? I don't really ever aspire to have Hermes place settings, but there are people who they would have a dinner party and they are really thinking about what linen colours they're going to use, the aesthetic.
That's my mum.
Yeah.
My mum, every year before Christmas, she tells us what the colour scheme will be for Christmas.
Do you have to dress accordingly?
We don't, but I think she'd appreciate if we did. Yeah.
But like, there are people who love that, and I would be like that on a much smaller scale, and I'd want to maybe have a few options and be like, oh, it's spring, I'll get some nice flowers and these settings. That is what my goals are in future life. But there are people in high society who'll be like, let's get out like the 1980 Hermes crockery. And I just think it sells a dream. I mean, my God, I just don't think I could ever have plates like that. Imagine someone like scrap, like, you know, it's really heavy with their knife, or, you know.
Yeah. I think, you know, I'm not going to lie, I think I would want like a fancy set. I
would
do.
You?
Yeah.
Would you use it?
Does that surprise you?
Can I just say, where are you going to keep this? Because Mr. Big...
Oh God, yeah. Oh God, you reminded me. That's such a good point. He's so bad with this stuff. Maybe I should just buy. Well, I'm not going to use it when he's there. Like,
Mr.
when
Mr. Big can have a regular plate. He can have one from IKEA, and you can have.
He can have the Paw Patrol plate. No, it's for other people. Then, if I just want to be fancy for one day.
So what?
You know what
crockery would you aspire to, like a dinner set, or would you want sort of a tea set?
Probably a dinner set, really a dinner set. But I think for like maybe my home office, I want a cup and saucer. You know, like a Versace one, or like
after dinner coffee
one. Yeah, and that's just like your fancy set just for yourself.
Love it.
I don't know. I like it. Yeah.
Would you have it on display?
Oh, probably not.
Because that's another thing, right? This homeware, you can then, you don't even, I mean, people don't normally walk into your wardrobe, do they? So they can't see that you've got lots of lovely things, but you can display in your home that you've got Hermes crockery, like those pillows, and that, like, that's become really famous. Lots of people knock them off too. But like, you know, on every Instagram of anyone who's sort of over a certain earning threshold,
there's always that Hermes blanket,
the Hermes like blanket or the Hermes pillows on their sofa, and it's just really distinctive and recognizable.
Yeah, that's true. One thing I do actually genuinely, I will have at some point,
manifest it.
I've told you before, I really like the Hermes scarves as pieces of art, framed.
Oh yeah,
that's something I would do 100%. But you're right in that people don't walk into your wardrobe or your walk-in wardrobe and like just rifle through your stuff. I mean, unless they see you enough wearing, you know, your designer pieces or whatnot. That's a really good point. It's a way to flash your wealth in all areas of your life.
Serious
if that's what you
flex.
want to do. Yeah. And I think that I was going to say is like, obviously, these designer brands don't just move into home, they move into other areas, like Chanel and their skiing collections. Like you can buy, if you like watched Emily in Paris, guys out there, and there was a Dior scooter with matching helmet and things to match and all of that. But the thing is, with branching out into other areas, and the same can be said for diffusion lines. So like they're cheaper, they're kind of like lower price point diffusion ranges, is that it can backfire because these brands have to go into, very often, if they're going into scooters now, they might partner up with a scooter brand, or if they want to make crockery, they might partner up with a crockery brand. It might not be like Wedgwood, like a one that we know of, but it's a company that makes this stuff, enabling them to kind of branch out into new departments. And what can happen is that you have like licensees, so they're allowed to use your logos on their stuff, and so that you can reach new departments and new target markets and whatnot. And you can oversaturate yourself if you don't treat, you know, your homeware, your lifestyle wear and other things like that as something to be carefully monitored and controlled. It can cheapen your brand. As you mentioned before in the beginning of this episode, you can start to see the logos everywhere. You know, as we say now with the MS scarves, it's partly to blame because of social media and we get an insight into people's lives constantly. But a few years ago, I didn't know anything about MS blankets.
Yeah.
And yes, now I see them, I either think, oh, I quite like them, I want to get one myself, or I'm thinking, oh, that's so cliche.
Yeah, basically.
Once you hit a certain like earning band, well, everyone buys an Hermes blanket.
Yeah.
Like, I want to do something different, and I'm going to buy something that is more meaningful to me in whatever way that is. So it can backfire on you.
So true. That's so true, actually. And it's actually really, that's so not what Hermes wants to achieve. But the amount that I see, it does seem very, I don't mean, whenever I say basic bitch, I'm saying it sort of ironically, but it seems a bit basic. It seems a bit like, oh yeah, everyone's got that. You know how I think of a Hermes blanket? It's like whenever you see someone from like Towie or like fresh out of Love Island, they all get those like awful grey velvet sofas, and their houses all look the same because maybe they've partnered with like, but they have the same looking houses, and you're like, oh my god, not another home that looks identical to the last or whatever. And that's what makes me like That's what I think of the Hermes blankets and cushions. I'm just like, oh, that again. And Hermes is so not that.
Yeah.
But also I think the difference is that now we have such new money sort of, and people doing really, really well with new money, that you can't stop that. And that it's very appealing to that audience.
Yeah, you can't gatekeep it. No. You know, if that's what people want and they can afford it and they buy it with their hard-earned money.
Yeah. I think Dior does home really nicely. The stuff that I've seen. Yeah. What is it called? Like chinois? What's like that pattern that they have called?
Oh God, I don't know. I know there's a name. I'm actually Googling Your Home because I don't think I've ever Your Maison. You know, sorry to cut you off, but just a thought of, we've been talking about luxury brands. I think one fast fashion brand that we all know and love, Zara, has done the best diffusion line, Zara Home. It's just kind of a brand that is, everyone can buy into Zara. Everyone does. Everyone owns something from Zara. But then for them to do some, reach out into a different department and do it really well, their stuff actually looks really nice. But it's not a line that's cheaper and more accessible for people. It's actually more expensive to buy into Zara Home. You spend a pretty penny on their linen and their bed sheets and their tableware and all of that. It's not cheap, but it's the design aesthetic can, rival home brands, like legit home brands. And that has converted their customer base, I think, coming from, spending £40 on a dress to now spending £200 on new bed sheets, everything that comes with bedding, is actually quite clever.
Yeah.
They've got you to spend more with them. And I think that that's great because Zara Home is genuinely, it has nice stuff.
Zara Home is amazing. And I remember when it sort of first started, it wasn't probably as luxe as it is now. But I actually think the positioning they have is great. And not that I want them to up their prices or improve sort of their clothing quality, but it really suits them. Zara Home feels like the main event almost now.
It's not Zara. It's Zara. It's like one entity in itself.
It's so, I mean, I'm in like full nesting mode at the moment. I just really want to make my home really nice. And actually, I was talking to my friend about this. She's like, but that's because we've spent so much time in our homes and like working from home that like I now want to come back in and it to be not just like, oh yeah, that's fine. I want it to be like, no, actually, that's really considered. I really like that. I've thought about what I want here. And I really like this, and this, and make it work. We spend so much more time and like permanently we'll hopefully be working from home in aspects forever that it's become more important. And Zara Home is lovely. And I'm hoping the quality is good because the prices are high on certain things, like their rugs are expensive, like their bedding. And I think it's really clever, especially because H&M and Zara are different, but they can be put together like on Zara's sort of TRF line. It's sort of quite similar to H&M. They could be quite interchangeable in that aspect, but H&M Home is a very different entity than Zara Home, and that could have been the positioning Zara did. But cheap, cheerful. And don't get me wrong, H&M Home has great stuff too. It definitely leans itself more towards sort of kids, and the odd bit here and there. But Zara Home is like, it's a real aesthetic. It's they've done well there.
I agree. I think of H&M Home as, and I could be wrong, but it's just my overall opinion, is like for people who don't own their own house but want it to look cute. And then Zara Home is a bit more like, I don't have money to be going to like specialist interior design shops from like West London, but I do want this cohesive look in my house, and I'm serious about interior design, and I'll consider Zara Home. I don't know, it's for like slightly more serious interior designy people. I don't know, could be wrong, but that's the impression I get. But you're right, they position themselves as two different things.
Yeah. I really understand the move for beauty. We've said like it's lucrative, and I understand it. It's sort of straightforward and all of that, and it goes so hand in hand with beauty. But I think home just creates that overall brand experience. I don't know if it's something that actually appeals to me that much on like, I don't even know, would I want Chanel pillows? I don't think I would. I think that's too low, because the only thing it could really be is like logo-y.
Yeah.
If it's not got a logo on, then what's the point in spending that much money on it? But I don't want a logo home. I'm not really that logo-y personally either. But there's definitely an audience for stuff like that. It appeals less to me, but I do appreciate, I love interiors. So I love seeing how they sort of do it. And for sure, it obviously then probably inspires Zara Home or like other places. But I also just do think, I think as a society, we are leveling up so much. Like, I think that, you know, even though both of us don't own a home, I would probably like want to style out. If I have like people coming over for dinner, I would put like a real effort into people coming over. I would sort of want my plates to match, you know. I think long gone are those days of just people winging it. Like when my parents bought their first home, they said they didn't have any furniture. My mum made bean bags. We all move into a home and we want to buy that like $2,000 sofa. We want to buy those nice things. And I just think that like the norm, and we're just leveling up. We make a big occasion out of everything. Like Easter now, there's all the decorations for Easter. There's tablescapes and all these like aesthetics. You're sort of meant to have these baskets for your kids. We're getting to a point where everything is becoming such a high consuming, like,
true.
You know? And I don't know if that is from this. I think it's a bit from Instagram. Like that's where I get a lot of it from, YouTube and Instagram, where you see people where they do host stuff and they've like really thought about it and they have loads of money, so they've bought like a new table runner and like candles and thought about a theme and maybe even got somebody in to like stage it to look nice, an events team. And you're like, I want that kind of a thing. But I think it works. And so I don't know what came first, but I think home it creates this lifestyle fantasy that fashion already does. So well, I think it makes total sense in my head.
So I also wanted to touch on more diffusion fashion lines. So when a designer, say Valentino, comes out with a diffusion line like Red Valentino, it's cheaper price point, reaches more people. So it's not branching out into new departments as such, but it's just, again, creating that fantasy, but for mass market. And I think that's really interesting because I feel like there's less of a focus on that sort of thing now. And as you said, maybe it is because people are willing to spend more on designer goods. They're more willing to buy into designer goods, that diffusion lines are less of a thing now or less promoted. Or it could just because it really does damage the appeal and reputation of the mainline brand. And also, like, high level thoughts, outlet stores, because there are lots of brands out there. I think we should do an episode on outlet. But there's a lot of people out there don't know that a brand will make things especially for their outlet stores. So it might be an old design that they have, but they just keep pumping out that design, and it can only be found in an outlet store, and they'll make it in a slightly cheaper leather. And because it's the same like old design, they can afford to sell it for cheaper because it's like the basics, you know, or they've made it from cheaper materials so they can sell it for cheaper. And or they just create things that is designed completely 100% just for outlet. And I think that reminds me of diffusion lines, because in essence it's saying, okay, you can't afford this season's collection of Dior, you can't go into the main store and, you know, buy our latest Lady Dior in what, like gold, you know, but if you go to our outlet, you'll find something similar. You'll find something that's specially made and it's cheaper, and we only keep that product there to cater to people who, you know, don't have the money for it, can't afford, you know, the more extravagant pieces. I think I think outlet stores are just a secret diffusion line in that sense.
Yeah, I actually think it's such a good point. One thing that made me think of, that made me think of is who doesn't have diffusion lines? Dior, Chanel, like Hermes, they don't do diffusion lines.
But they barely have sale.
Huh?
They barely have sale.
But like, well, is the reason because they do well enough without it? Like, I don't think Louis V does either, do they? No. So like these more established brands don't do it. And you see it sort of more like, so like Marc Jacobs had Marc by Marc Jacobs, which was successful.
Yep.
But was that for funding reasons? I think, you know, like, where is it? I think I've probably closed the window, have I? No. Come on. I was going to read sort of like where someone's description of like what a diffusion line is, but the window won't open. Never mind. It basically was saying like it's for.
I'll then start your sentence again, because a lot of that sentence was.
Oh my god. So why brands have diffusion lines is often for money. It's to appeal to a wider customer base. It's also so that then they can make more units, and in fashion, if you make more units, then you get a better price at a factory. And then if you like, everything is a numbers game when it comes to stuff like that in fashion. I'm sure it's the case in other things. But if you buy more meterage of a fabric, it's the cheaper it is.
Yeah.
The more garments you ask a factory to make, the cheaper their cost for you is, you know. And so it's much more cost effective for brands to actually mass produce. That's why it's really noble and whatever when brands want to be exclusive. That doesn't mean it's cheaper for them. So diffusion lines are to help get those minimums down, or maybe it's also the same factory that makes their mainline, but because you're giving them more numbers, it means that the mainline stuff can have a better margin. Like, it's all of this stuff. So I definitely think the birth of a diffusion line is just, it's a financial thing. It's definitely not got the consumer in mind. I would say when it's successful, if I were to be a designer, I feel like the way I would have a diffusion line is I would have more fun with it. I think that's when a diffusion line works, in my opinion, is when it's quite different. Maybe it's more playful. Maybe that's where like you have more fun with print. Maybe that's like a bit more fashion or like seasonal focus. Maybe, I don't know. But I think it should be quite distinguishedly different. I don't sort of think it should just be ever so slightly cheaper and a slightly cheaper fabric. I think the design aesthetic, like you should want that. Yeah. Just to make
I agree.
Like, I think then you like don't water down what the other designs are either.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you do run the risk of watering down the designs from your main line. And yeah, it should be different. There should be a different essence to your diffusion. So just quickly, I was going to go through some of the brands and their respective diffusion lines. Some of them I didn't know and some of them I did. So with Burberry, you have Burberry Prosrum. I can never pronounce that. Ralph Lauren, you have Polo Ralph Lauren, you have they have one called Chaps, supposedly. Don't know if that exists anymore.
For horses, surely.
I don't know if it's for horses or it's...
No, as in like for horse people.
Yeah, well, hopefully. Chaps. You have Moschino with Cheap and Chic and Love Moschino as well, which is quite a popular one. You see that quite around a lot. You have Calvin Klein with CK jeans, Calvin Klein underwear. Oh, you know what? That's the diffusion line that's wildly successful.
Yeah, their underwear.
Yeah, rightly so. I've got some of that underwear. It's great. Then you have Dolce and Gabbana with D&G, which is closed now. You have another one, Donna Karen. DKNY is, I would say, is more popular than Donna Karen. Fendi supposedly has one. I might just be completely in the dark, but it's called Fendissimi, which I guess is like very Fendi translation. You have Boss, and their diffusion line is Hugo or Hugo Boss. You have another one, Roberto Cavalli with Just Cavalli.
Yeah.
We had Agent Provocateur, and they had L'Argent, but since closed as well. You've mentioned Marc Jacobs with Marc by Marc Jacobs. Another big one is Alexander McQueen with MCQ. I don't know how to say it, but you know what I mean. Michael Kors with Michael by Michael Kors. Again, I think their diffusion is more popular. We've also got Valentina Garavani with Red Valentino. Tommy Hilfiger with Tommy Jeans. Versace with Versus, which is actually very popular. And I think that it has I might be wrong again, but like Versus and Versace Jeans Couture has like a constant aesthetic, whereas Versace changes with seasons depending on their collection. But you always know with like Versus and Versace Jeans Couture, you're always going to get like a Baroque style silk shirt. Yeah, if that's your thing year after year, like you're always going to find that. And then you have Yohji Yamamoto with Y3 and Y3 for Adidas. And again, very big, really popular. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, your main line can be overshadowed if you're not careful, but then maybe that's the point of it, no?
Yeah, I guess it's just, and if you start a diffusion, you want that to be successful too. So I feel like you probably don't see it as a rivalry between them either. Like there will for sure be people who've heard of Y3 by Adidas and who have no clue who Yohji Yamamoto is. You know, and as long as your sort of pride can take that, which it should, because you're still being, you know, successful and your designs are still being appreciated. But people, it's just, I think people always have the big calls is the main line. That would be for me. That would still always be the most important thing, whatever it, like my main line.
That's the thing. It's like the way we view couture as well. Couture is the chance to come out with some big designs and really express yourself and for a brand too. And then their ready to wear is the more realistic approach, the more realistic version, the one that people can actually buy into. Now, for some brands, their ready to wear is still very expensive.
Yeah.
So in the same way that like ready to wear is more popular than the couture version, just because of the price and the design and whatnot, these even cheaper diffusion lines, because look, for example, Valentino has Valentino Couture. They also have Valentino Garavani as like their main ready to wear, but they also have Red Valentino, which is like even cheaper. So it's all the same, isn't it?
I think I'd really struggle to get my head around all of that.
In what way?
In the sense of, I think I'd always prioritize sort of one over the other. I think, would they not get kind of like cross purpose?
But one is a marketing tool.
Yeah, and one is the way that you're able to still have fun with the others, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think you see it. I haven't seen any brands who are sort of maybe newer with diffusion lines. I feel like it's probably less of a ploy these days. I think if I were a brand, I'd almost put my money elsewhere or that effort into probably like in getting influencers, or I don't know. I think you see it less, but then also I feel like we're seeing less brands emerging at that level too.
At that like price point, that sort of level, expensive nonetheless, but just not as expensive as I mean, I could see like an Amina Muaddi coming out with a diffusion line, if I'm honest. I know that Manolo Blahnik did a collaboration with Castanier. They do the espadrilles. Don't know if you see them on like Net-a-Porter and stuff. And his shoes are, you know, he doesn't do dress down shoes.
No.
And so that is like, you know, you want Manolo Blahniks at an affordable price, like £150 or £100 or however much. So, but yeah, as you said, these are brands that are very expensive. And I don't know I haven't really seen brands that have come out recently that are on that same price point level. So yeah, there probably isn't much need for diffusion lines, but give it time.
Do you think collaborations are the new diffusion lines?
Maybe that's why we see so much of them. I think in the way that brands that don't have diffusion lines, as you mentioned, like Chanel and whatnot, they either use their outlet stores to kind of shift that quantity. I'm not saying Chanel does, but maybe Dior or Gucci, for example. Because if you go Bicester Village, Gucci has a massive store, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in there that is made for outlet. I'm convinced.
For sure.
So like, Gucci uses their outlet, and they also use their very high number of collaborations each year with arguably cheaper brands to shift large amounts of stock. But then sometimes these collaborations can be really exclusive, and there's not a lot of stock to be had, you know. So not always.
Interesting.
I think for Fendi Skims, maybe.
Just don't think Fendi got much out of that person.
Oh, I don't know. We all knew who Fendi was before. We all want Fendi stuff. Like, I want Fendi stuff more than I want Skims stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, anything else for diffusion lines?
No, what should our poll be this week?
What's your favourite diffusion line? Or what's a diffusion line you didn't know was a diffusion line and you thought it was the main line? Well, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Style Over Substance, guys.
Don't forget to check out our Instagram or Spotify to respond to this week's poll.
Bye.
Bye.